Hey students, today we are looking at Properties of Exponents, Part 5, page 31 in the textbook, number 29. This is a pretty complicated multi-step problem with exponents, and it looks like that. The very first thing I think of when I see a problem like this is all of these x over 2's is really 1/2 times x. And so I'm going to take a minute and go through the whole problem and change all of this x over 2 business to 1/2 times x. And then I'm gonna keep the exponent. So it's here, instead of x over 2, I've written 1/2 times x. That's to the power of 3 times, again, I'm just translating, expanding this out a little bit. So I've got 1/2 x every instance that I see x over 2. Don't forget to include the exponent. And then this is the whole reason that we did that, is to make this easier. So this x over 3, x to the power of 3 over 2, we're going to change to 1/2 times x to the power of 3. Keep all of that in your parentheses, and then all of that is going to be squared. Okay, so now we can keep manipulating this some more. This is probably new information, but you can extrapolate what you learned in the chapter about exponents to go back to the top there. We're going to simplify. We're going to have the 1/2. We're going to basically distribute this 3 to the 1/2 and to the x. So we'll have 1/2 cubed times x cubed. That was all of this. We just distributed the 3 to the 1/2 and to the x. So we've got 1/2 cubed times x cubed. Now we're going to keep doing it. For our next number there, we'll have 1/2. This time will be to the power of 4. And then x to the power of 4. So that was this. Okay, so we're all done with the top. Now, on the bottom, this time we're going to distribute the cube to our factors. So we'll have 1/2 cubed times x to the power of 3 we're going to be distributing the cube to that, so it's going to look like this, 3 times 2, because when you have the two exponents together like that, you're multiplying them. I can expand that out in another lesson. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. We're seeing some like terms. Let's see what we can do next. Up top, we have these like terms that we can combine. So that will be 1/2 to the power of 3 plus 4, which is 7. You combine those because 1/2 to the power of 3 looks like 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. 1/2 to the power of 4 looks like 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So when you put those all together, it's 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, 7 times. That's how you expand it out, but you can just memorize it. When you multiply numbers that have the same base and a different exponent, you add them together like that. Okay. And then we can do the same thing with the x's. We have x to the power of 3 times x to the power of 4 left up at top. We're going to go ahead and just combine those into x to the power of 7. Okay, so we did everything. We did those two, and then we did those two. And then down on the bottom, let's see what we can do with this. The 1/2 to the power of 2 is just going to stay. And then our x to the power of 3 times 2 is going to look like x to the power of 6. Okay. This is looking much better. So what you can do now is you subtract the bottom from the top. So you would end up with 1/2 to the power of 5, because we basically did 1/2 to the power of 7 minus 1/2 to the power of 2. I was working with this. You end up with 1/2 to the power of 5, and then you can subtract the next one. X to the power of 7 minus x to the power of 6 is simply x. So you have 1/2 to the power of 5 times x. And what you can do there, you can just leave it like that, but you can simplify it one step further, and you end up with x over 2 to the power of 5. But this is fine. I accept this as an answer, but I see that the textbook wants us to go one step further. Okay, I hope that helped. Thanks.